So there's a lot of debates on whether or not 2JZ GTE or 2JZ GE is better, which is better or which is worse. Obviously, we all know if you know anything about a 2J, you know that a GTE is better. So what I'm going to convince you guys in this video is why the GE is worthwhile for the most part. So I'm just briefly go over the differences to let you know why the difference between the GTE and the GE, just in case some of you didn't know. So we'll go ahead and start with the block. All right, so here's my block. This is a 2JZ GE out of my IS-300. It's the original one. So structurally, both blocks are exactly the same. They are identical. The differences are that the GTE actually has different machining work done to it than the GE. So the GE, it didn't get all the machining work done because it doesn't have turbos, obviously. So I believe right here, can't remember what it was, it's like one of these holes are actually an oil drain that would be on a GTE block, but it's not on this one as well. So I flipped the block over. So in these little, I guess called indentions, whatever you want to call that, there would be oil squirters on the GTE to keep the pistons cool. And as well, the cylinders, they are the same height and the same diameter, which is 86 millimeters by 86 millimeters. As well, the GE does have a smaller oil pump. It's only like a little bit smaller, and if you wanted to, if you was building the motor or whatnot, you could just swap over the GTE oil pump onto the GE oil pump. Now we're moving on to the cylinder head. I don't have the cams in here, I just have this valve cover on there. All right, so the GE and the GTE, their exhaust ports are different sizes. So some people say that the GE flows better on the exhaust side, and on the intake side, the GTE flows better. So therefore, since the port sizes are different, the intake manifolds and exhaust manifolds are not interchangeable between GE and GTE heads. And this is also VVTi, by the way. But now the valve covers, if you ever seen a channel from a guy that has a blue IS-300, I think it's 2J is the name. I actually asked him in the comments if the GTE valve covers are swappable onto the GE head, because he actually did a swap on his, so that he could use like a different coil bracket. And he actually confirmed to me that they are swappable, because right here you can see where there are other marks for the other, where the other valve cover bolts would go. As far as injectors go, the GE for the IS-300, SC300s, or just the GE VVTi in general, they came with 250cc injectors, which is very small, but you know it's NA, so you don't really need too much. And the Supras, or the GTE, the USDM version, came with, which I believe was the non-VVTi version, it came with 550cc injectors. I don't know about the VVTi one, I can't remember. It might be, it's either 450 or 550, one of the two. And then for the GTE, or for the GE rail, it does not have a fuel return. So right here, this is where most people that would do an NAT build, where they would tap the fuel rail for a fuel return or even a fuel pressure regulator. Now here's the biggest thing. This is the biggest debate that people wonder about. Does the GE and GTE have the same internals? No, they do not. Or at least for the VVTi versions, they do not. So the 2JZ GE VVTi comes with a skinnier rod. Apparently it's made out of better material, that's what they say, but it's a skinnier rod, and it can only handle up to about, I believe, 450 torque before it'll break. And then it has high compression pistons. So the compression for the GE is, I believe, 10.5 to 1. So it's the non-VVTi GEs that had the same rods as all the GTEs. All the GTEs had the same rods, which are a lot thicker rods that can handle about 700 foot-pounds of torque before they'll break. Then lastly, we have the oil girdle. So right here, this is the oil drain that will be on the GTE. But as you can see, it hasn't been machined out for the GE, because as it is NA. So with all that said, knowing how good the GTE is compared to the GE, why the hell would anybody ever sell for just a GE? For one, they're more readily available, especially in the US, considering that we have a bunch of Lexuses and Toyotas that came with them. And as well, they are much cheaper than the GTE is to get, and as well you have to import them because, like I said, they're found in the US. And since the GEs are very cheap, it'll also be good for like a rebuild, such as what I'm doing for my car, or even just building a racing motor in general, say for like FD drivers or anything like that, or road racing. And even if the GE block isn't enough for you, you could just machine it to be the same as GTE. It's not really too much to it. If you're not trying to, you know, rebuild the motor, or even, you know, trying to make a high horsepower build, you could just use a GE and you can turbocharge it, supercharge it, and run close to 400 horsepower or a little bit more. Just make sure you don't cross the line about 450 to 500, and the car running all day, every day. At the end of the day, it's a 2J. It's strong, but the rods itself aren't as strong as the GTE rods, as I said before. On top of that, if you're doing a 2JZ GTE swap on any car that doesn't already have a 2J in it, because you have to buy swap parts and kits and all that, it'll more than likely cost you about 5K to about 10 grand, because to begin with, you have to already pay 3K for the GTE itself, and then that comes with swap kits, exhaust, ECU, all the above, which is great because, you know, you're gonna, in the end, the build is gonna be amazing, and you have, you know, Turbo JZ and all that. But if you want to do something a little bit different, or a little more, I guess, a little cheaper, you can go with a GE block. Just throw some rods in there and either some lower compression pistons, unless you want to keep the high compression for the power that you're trying to make. Just throw the rods, pistons in there, put it back together, or even change the crossover manifold into a front-facing intake manifold and change starter body and run standalone ECU. It'll save you a little bit of cost of having to buy the GTE, because, like I said, it costs about 3K or even more. And the GE, the most it costs about $1 grand, and then the lowest will be about 300, 400, 500. And that's just for blocks, or even some that, you know, people have, you know, left over. For me personally, I'm gonna do a 2JZ GE NAT build, because the most I've ever seen is, you know, Lexus IS 300, 1JZ swap, 2JZ swap, or 2JZ GTE, I mean. And, you know, I want to kind of, you know, do something a little bit different, just run the original GE and show that, you know, that it's good, and start making some power. So perfect example is that, is like I said earlier, the guy name, or his channel name, is 2J. Like, he's running, you would think that's a GTE, but it's not. He just has GTE valve covers on there, but it's a fully built GE making 800 horsepower, and now I think he's pushing to make 1,000 now, probably this year. But yeah, this will be a huge learning experience for me. This is the first time I'm going to be building an engine or anything like that. We'll have a ton of fun, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I just wanted to share a little information and whatnot. Just did this just cause, and why not? So I'll see you guys in the next one.